Alexander Hamilton. He is missing in action. So now I'm facing Aaron Burr with his own faction.
He's very attractive in the North. New Yorkers like his chances.
He's not very forthcoming on any particular stances.
Ask him a question that glances off. He obviously dances.
And they say I'm a Francophile. At least they know I know where France is.
Good evening and welcome to the Kuhn Academy for this installment of AP US History, where we're not just learning history, we're making history. All right, this should be our last video before the exam, which will probably be tomorrow. Well, it is tomorrow. And we're going to talk about the election of 1800, which is a key turning point because it's the conclusion of Era 3 and the start of Era 4. All right, so we'll start with a little cartoon here, one you might see on the exam, maybe not ours, but the AP exam. Kind of illustrates some of the issues that are going on. So you'll see here, this pillar is the federal government. You'll see it in Washington and Adams on there, representing the Federalists. And the eagle there kind of symbolizing the government. And you see Thomas Jefferson trying to tear that down. Now, hopefully we understand Jefferson as a Democratic Republican would be opposed to the Federalist administration and their policies throughout the 1790s, including the Whiskey Rebellion, Jay's Treaty, the Alien Sedition Acts, the Hamilton Financial Plan, and so on and so forth. And you see Jefferson being kind of unfairly influenced here by the devil, encouraging to kind of bring that down. So today we talk about how dirty our campaign is with Trump and Hillary, and the things that they're saying and doing to each other. But Jefferson and Adams were no different. In fact, sometimes way worse, some of the things they were saying. So Jefferson was called into play for being an atheist, not being religious. Adams's faithfulness to his wife was called into question, and his being a secret monarchist and stuff like that. So dirty campaigning is nothing new to our politics. All right. So after the election of 1796, John Adams is our victor, with Jefferson coming in second place, and under the current rules, making him the VP. Well, they pretty much hated each other by the end of their administration. We're not talking. Jefferson pretty much wasn't coming to work anymore, so they realized they can't have president and vice presidents be of different parties anymore, all right? Because there were no parties in the original Constitution, so that's why the president was the winner. The second place finisher was the VP. They assumed that was going to work. So Adams first starts out by asking Mr. Thomas Pinckney of South Carolina to run as president as well, because you didn't run as a president-vice president combo back then like they are today. But instead you ran as for president, hoping one guy would come in second place. Okay, so Adams asked Pinckney to run, Pinckney from South Carolina, Adams from Massachusetts, trying to cover both regions. Jefferson, obviously the same thing, did not want Adams or Pinckney to be his VP, so he asked Aaron Burr from New York to run as his second choice, and assuming one would come in first, the other would come in second. All right, so after the election, there is a dead tie between Jefferson and Burr, all right? Because the electors in the Electoral College voted for one vote for Jefferson, one vote for Burr, so naturally they were going to tie. Adams was 3 votes behind and Pinckney was 4 votes behind because one of the electors voted for John Jay just to make sure Adams would not tie with Pinckney. But the Democrat Republicans were not as smart, and Burr and Jefferson ended up in a tie. All right, now this is the first election with the new Capitol, so they meet in Washington at the Capitol building right over here to decide the president, because when there is a tie or nobody gets a majority, the election is decided in the House of Representatives. Now we're talking about that scenario in 2016 where the guy from Utah, McCollum, is hoping that same thing will happen. All right, so there's a little historical synthesis for you. So this is the actual old chamber of the House of Representatives. So in this room here is where for 6 days the House of Representatives is deadlocked of who they want for president. The Federalists have to choose between Jefferson and Burr. Now remember, when we make our choices, we always go with the enemy of my enemy is my friend. The Federalists' worst enemy is Thomas Jefferson. They can't stand him. So they're going to support Aaron Burr, who's from New York, which even though he's a Democratic Republican, is still a Federalist stronghold. All right, so for 6 days they can't agree on who the candidate will be. All right, creating a little bit of a constitutional controversy, because if no president is chosen, Adams can remain in office, and as president, he's commander-in-chief of the military. There's no one to oust him from the White House either. Okay, so there's really a fear that Adams could essentially ascend as a monarch, and our democratic experiment will fail. So after the vote, Jefferson and Burr tie with 73 electoral votes apiece. Adams gets 65, Pinckney gets 64, and then Jay just gets the 1 for that. All right. So under those rules, it goes to the House of Representatives. Now, one thing I want you to notice here: Jefferson has a lot of support in the South, giving him 8 more electoral votes over Adams, whose stronghold is up here in the North. All right. Now, why are these numbers so big in the South? All right. You're going to have to synthesize. You're going to have to think of something we learned in this unit. And I'm going to give 5 points on note cards to the first kid that can tell me tomorrow why the South had such a larger population than the North, which swung this election in Jefferson's favor. All right. So what ends up happening is they go to the House of Representatives, and after 6 days, the Federalists finally give up their support for Burr, who they really didn't like in the first place, and switch their support to Jefferson and name him the president, with Burr becoming the VP. And that's significant because the leader of the Federalist Party, even though he's not in the House of Representatives, is Alexander Hamilton. And he makes that move to eventually say, guys, we lost. We have to give up. Jefferson's the rightful winner. That's who the people chose. So let's throw our support behind Jefferson. Something Aaron Burr, pretty much a Jefferson friend, never forgave Hamilton for. And we'll get even with that a little later on in our story, all right, as we move forward. Okay? So Jefferson becomes the president. Burr is the VP, and Adams leaves in a very, very bad fashion. He does not stick around for the inauguration to have Jefferson sworn in, nor does he respect his right to run the government, because he makes a bunch of what are called midnight appointments or midnight judges, all right, that we'll talk about in the next unit, which, as you know, the federal judges in the Constitution are appointed for life. So Adams can make these lifetime appointments of federal judges while Jefferson is trying to govern as a Democratic Republican. That's going to make things very difficult in the next unit. All right? So that's a problem. We're also going to see a 12th Amendment come out of this, a change in the Constitution, which is going to require the electors to cast a separate vote for president and vice president. All right? No longer can you vote for 2 people for president, with one coming in first and one coming in second. You have to cast separate votes. So in 2016, when our electors vote for president, they will vote for either Trump and Mike Pence or Hillary and Tim Kaine. You won't be able to vote for Hillary and Trump, for example. They also required the president and vice president to be from separate states, which is also important because there was a big fear of a dominance of Virginia, as you can see with these 21 electoral votes for president. All right, so a lot of legacies, a lot of effects come out of this election of 1800, setting the stage for the next unit and future controversies to come. All right, so we call this the Revolution of 1800, with the being the first peaceful transfer of power. So thank you very much for listening to today's installment of the Kuhn Academy, where we're not just learning history, we're making history. And good luck on your exam tomorrow.
Thomas, that's the problem. See, they see Burr as a less extreme view. You need to change course. A key endorsement might redeem you.
Who did you have in mind?
Don't laugh.
Who is it?
You used to work on the same staff. It might be nice, it might be nice to get Hamilton on your side.